much for having me here tonight. And what I'm gonna tell you is going to be extremely boring. So I will be going around and like making really loud noises to make sure you're awake. Okay? All right, next slide. All right, has anybody seen anything that looks like this? Okay? All right, so what we're gonna learn about isn't about the candidates itself. We're gonna learn about where this is coming from. So next. All right.
Oh, that's easy to read.
I got that, yeah.
All right, so it looks like a washing machine to me, kind of, because it spins around, right? And so really kind of what I figured out is this is money laundering for political profit, all right? I'm gonna give you a couple of terms so that you kind of understand what we're talking about first. Does anybody know what a C4 organization is? A 501c4 organization, okay? There's a 501c3, it's an IRS designation. So a 501c3 is usually some kind of nonprofit that doesn't do any political work. So you're talking about Salvation Army, Goodwill, something like that. A 501c4 is an IRS designation wherein the people can raise money, but up to 40% of the money in that C4 can be used for political purposes, okay? There was a lawsuit that was brought many years ago now, over 10, called Citizens United, in which an organization complained that they weren't able to run some political ads right before an election. And what ended up happening was, it was basically decided by the Supreme Court that suppression of advertising, political advertising, amounted to suppression of free speech, okay? So when that actually happened, then oh, bless your heart, thank you, you guys are so nice here. What actually happened with that was, there was this huge influx of C4 organizations that could take money and hide their donors, because that's the problem with C4. And that term, dark money, actually comes from the fact that in a C4 organization, they don't have to tell where they got the money from, okay? So you can go look at their IRS filings, and I have, and it's very boring, I'll just let you know. You can go find them, but it will say $1 million, $300,000, no donor, okay? They just have to file. That's why it's dark money. But here's where the problem comes in. So all of these little pink ones are C4 organizations. All of the red ones are FEC, Federal Election Commission. If you're gonna run a federal race for a federal seat, you have to establish as a committee with the Federal Election Commission. You have to sign up, you have to do paperwork, okay? So, and PACs, everybody know what a PAC is? A PAC is just an organization that collects money and doles it out, because if you're going to donate directly to a candidate, you're probably gonna have to remind me. It's $2,800 per person.
29.
29, I always wanna do 28, 29, and then.
Per election cycle.
Yes, but then as the couple, you can donate twice, right? So the wife can donate 2,900, and then okay, so that's pretty much it, right? So the reason why you have a PAC then is so that you can spend over that amount of money supporting or going against a candidate. So do we all understand that before I move on? Because otherwise it's gonna go really fast and y'all are gonna go, what? Make it stop. Okay?
What was
All
the
right,
pink?
so,
What was the pink again?
the pink are the C4 organizations. And so if you notice, everywhere a pink thing is, notice all of the things that go out from it. Because the pink, the C4 organization, is what's donating to the PACs. Okay?
They're
That's
receiving
where
the money that they are then
they're
giving.
receiving the dark money that they are then pushing out into the PACs so that for the unlimited donations. Okay? Here's one more term you have to know. Independent expenditure. I'm going to use the term IE a lot. It means independent expenditure. It means that if I wanted to support Clay in his house seat, right? And in your house seat, I'm not gonna go, I wanna give him more than $2,800, okay? So I'm going to go create a PAC, and I'm gonna find some donors, and I'm gonna put a bunch of money in there, and I'm gonna start doing ads on Clay's behalf. But Clay doesn't know that I'm doing that, okay? Because my giving is independent of his campaign. Does that make sense? So I'm expending money independent of his campaign. So you're gonna see that a lot, and that's a big problem with what we have are these independent expenditures. You know the lovely, Clay Stairs is a rhino. What was the best one you got?
Oh, just a liar.
Why, you're a
Clay's
liar?
a liar.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are
Yeah.
you? Well, we can't be friends then.
Right.
Okay. Those kinds of things don't come from a candidate account because his opponent didn't want his name all over that, right? So they went and put a bunch of money in a PAC and then paid it out of there in an independent expenditure, all right? Okay, so next slide. We may have had trouble. All right. This is the first, I studied 14 different PACs. We're not gonna have time to talk about all of them, but I'm just gonna talk about some of the worst ones, okay? This is a public voice. It's one of the pink ones. It's a 501c4. It has had 501c4 status since 2013. You have to find out about the PAC. You have to go to the IRS website and literally find out. You have to look at their 990s that were filed. That's the only way that you know about it. And trust me when I say, I know this is gonna be super, it's like, oh, really? It took me probably a month to do all of this research because by the time you go and find the 501c4, you still have to have the EIN number, which is the number that they file at the IRS with. Otherwise, you can't look up their 990s. So you have to go find the 501c4, then you have to find their EIN number, then you have to plug that in at the IRS, then you have to look it up, and then you have to read sometimes 35 pages of IRS filings to find anything out about them, okay? So I did find out that their 990 lists an Ohio address. What state is this? Oklahoma. Oh, I was just, because it's an O state. I thought maybe I was in the wrong place. Okay. Now, there has to be a principal officer or a treasurer or of some kind listed, all right? That's what the IRS regulations say. This one had no principal officer named, and the address that was given leads to a registration company. A registration company, if you have, who has a company in here? Like an LLC, you have to go register it with the state secretary of state, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can, instead of going to the secretary of state, you can just go to the Stop and Shop on the corner because there are a lot of people that do this just as a business, and they'll pump out 20 of these a day. All right, it's just a registration company. They're just registering companies that then they send that information to the state Secretary of State. All right, there were no tax records for 2021 available. Remember COVID? I thought that was funny because now the CDC is like, never mind, okay. So during COVID, it stopped everything. And so a lot of times you can't find 2021 and sometimes not even 2020 IRS filings right now because they still haven't gotten through the backlog.
Those
So
86,000 agents will straighten that.
yeah, that's not for this. That's for you and me. Let's just make sure we know what we're talking about. But there weren't any records for 2021, and I could only find donations to PACs by accidentally finding the PAC and then going, oh, look, who's this public voice? That's tricky, isn't it? Okay? Now, they donated to Advance Oklahoma PAC. They gave $225,000 and another PAC called Build and Protect PAC, which we'll talk about in a second. Because 501c4s don't have to name their donors, there's no way to track the money into Oklahoma, and it's an Ohio registered PAC. There's very little information provided in the public voice tax filings. So the main point here is, if it's a 501c4, it's super hard to find information on it. okay? But these are what's feeding these packs. Next. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about something called Build and Protect Pack. This one I ended up finding because this was my house district race, okay? It is an FEC pack. And we'll talk about that in a second. And if you guys if something doesn't make sense, will you let me know at the time? Because this is what all of these are gonna look like. So let me know right away, all right? So it was filed as an FEC pack and it got $100,000 from a public voice. A man named Dustin McIntyre was the treasurer. Its address is a package ship in Nichols Hills, okay? It made disbursements to South Creek Group LLC CAMP, which is Campaign Advocacy Management Professionals. These are all campaign people, okay? People that run campaigns. CAMP, Red Maverick Media LLC, FlexPoint Media Inc., Amber Integrated LLC, and there were no independent expenditures reported. So if you went out to the FEC, you couldn't see what that money was spent on. You could just see that they spent it with South Creek Group and Camp. Does that make sense? Okay. So now I went down to the, oh, yes ma'am.
So Jenny, if
Not
they,
now, wait till you
so if they are sending money to campaign managers,
Uh-huh.
can they specify whose campaign they want it to go toward?
They don't at the FEC level.
But I mean, it's legal for them, say it's Clay's campaign manager.
Okay.
It's legal for them to send $100,000 to his campaign manager.
Okay.
And then that campaign manager can then use it for Clay, and Clay doesn't have to come up with as much money to pay for the campaign manager.
Right. Well, but I will say this, a lot of these things, when it says South Creek Group or Creek Camp or something like that, so the PAC would pay the political consultant, and the political consultant would pay the vendor.
So for like his cards, if he's
Yes.
mailing cards out.
Yes,
Yeah,
does that make sense?
the money doesn't get to the candidate, the money pays for the mailing.
That's
Well, I
right.
mean, that's
So-
still the same as,
So,
Yeah, it's-
South Creek Group,
exactly.
it's a racket.
South Creek Group is a political, management company, right? The PAC paid them, right? But then they probably paid for a card or something. It's all broken down, and I'll kind of get into it a little bit so you can see, but the point of the matter is that that's what's showing on the FEC filing, but there's no independent expenditure. It didn't say it was paid for anybody. So now I went down to the state. I went to the Oklahoma Ethics Commission, and I do want to say this. None of this stuff that you're gonna see me talk about was private at all. All of this is public information that you can find. It's just Clay's giggling.
If you can
Right,
find
you
it.
find it. It's just extremely time consuming and hard, difficult to find, okay? But I like to make that point because I don't want people to think that this is anything other than public information, because it is not. All right, so I went and looked, and the Oklahoma State Ethics Commission did have independent expenditures filed, but they weren't registered as a PAC in Oklahoma. Okay, so think on that a second. Dustin McIntyre is listed as their compliance officer. A compliance officer is an officer that makes sure that they're following Oklahoma State ethics rules and regulations, okay? It's not a treasurer. A treasurer tracks the money going in and out of the PAC and reports that. A compliance officer just makes sure you're following rules, okay? But I want you to notice, it's in Ohio up here, and down here, it's in Oklahoma, right? All right, expenditures were the same groups, but the expenditures didn't match, the state expenditures didn't match what was listed at the FEC level, all right? All independent expenditures but two supported John George for state representative. One was against, I can't see with the head. I can't remember all of these. One was against his opponent, and then John George is a camp client, and all the independent expenditures for George paid entities other than camp, and we'll talk about that in a second. One ID was for Brenda Stanley, and that was made from the Build and Protect camp. Now, this PAC address, Build and Protect, is the same one that's also used for George's website and numerous other camp clients. So next. All right, this is what you see when you go, oh, sorry, yes,
I tried to look up camp today, because we was looking at some of your material
okay.
online. Is camp an acronym for something?
CAMP is an acronym
Did I
for
miss it?
Campaign Advocacy Management Professionals. Okay.
Can we
Yeah.
tell some of the campaigns that camp is actually running? Is that?
Well, yeah, and I'll talk about
Okay,
those in
great.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is what, if you go into the Oklahoma State Ethics Commission, this is what you're gonna find online, okay? This is an independent expenditure, okay? It tells what the total expenditures were, and it says for what. Okay, now here's the thing that I wanted to point out here. South Creek Group was doing expenditures for, John George, who is a camp client, okay? Down here, camp is doing campaign expenditures for Brenda Stanley, who is not a camp client. Okay, so just sit and think about that for a second, and we'll go over that. Now, this column was what was reported to the FEC for expenditures. This was what was reported to the
Can we
state
focus that just a
for
little bit?
expenditures.
I know it's not just
I
me.
thought it was just me.
Oh, is it? What, are we having trouble?
There
Is it better?
we
Oh,
go.
look!
There we go.
Thank you! I thought it was me because I was too close, so thank you,
Can
okay.
you start over again, please?
No. Thank you for the question, but no. So what I did was, I put the yellow was what matched the expenditures, but that's kind of weird, don't you think? Next slide. All right, so instead of just going out and making all these hypotheses, well, instead of making all these statements, I actually made questions, all right? So let's talk about the questions. Should a political service provider be paid from a PAC that supports its own client? In this case, George. Isn't it odd, do you think, that it would be, this particular PAC would be supporting a camp client, and then camp would be paid out of that PAC? Because we have what we call, you're not supposed to have collusion in an independent expenditure, okay? So if I create an independent expenditure PAC on behalf of Clay Sayers, I can't, hey Clay, how about if I use the coordinate a little bit and I run this thing and then you run that, right? You're not allowed to do that. You may not at all speak, no independent expenditure can speak with the client that they're actually working for or against, okay? You can't do that. Yes, sir?
But evidently, they can talk to the client's consultant.
That's a good question, isn't it?
Well, I think the answer's right there.
So, should George's campaign website and the PAC supporting him have the same postal address? Should the FEC disbursements match the state IE reports? Why are disbursements reported to an FEC registered PAC for a candidate that's not running for a federal seat, but a House seat? Why is the PAC not registered with Oklahoma Ethics Commission? Should the PAC have a treasurer and compliance officer who live in Oklahoma with an Oklahoma street address and not a PO box? So just think on those questions. Do those make sense to people? I mean, do people have those same questions? Sure. Okay, so I think that's important to know. So next. All right, let's talk about this Dustin McIntyre guy. I have looked up Dustin McIntyre. Now, I'm not a forensic, I will say that. I don't do forensics, computer forensics. All I can do is just do what everybody else does, which is just search and search and search and search and search, right? I swear, after hours and hours and hours of following dead ends and leads, I could not find anybody named Dustin McIntyre. My family lives in Ohio, so I know something about Ohio. I even found his voter record in Ohio. It's actually in the county where my family lives. I went and looked at property records to see if the property records matched the voter, and it was like a field. I mean, I could not find this guy anywhere. But yet and all, he's on 8 PACs associated with Oklahoma candidates. Parents and Students First, Protect Our Freedoms PAC, Job Creators Action Fund, Fund for a Working Congress, Advance Oklahoma PAC, Oklahomans for Law and Order, Muskogee Diversity Coalition, and Hometown Freedom Action Network. A ghost. Interesting, huh? According to paperwork filed with the FEC for the Protect Our Freedoms PAC, McIntyre's email address is through the FEC Compliance Group, which was once called the Clark Ford Group, and both of them are based out of Columbus, Ohio. He had a partner named John Ryder who's involved in other PACs on that washing machine. So there's no digital footprint for this guy. Next. Okay, so let's go to this table 1, because you'll hear a lot about this. So I kept seeing the same addresses over and over and over again, and I'm like, okay, now this is weird. I have a master's in biology. I've written research papers, so the scientific method makes sense to me, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna make a table out of this. Okay, so for the address 6608 Northwestern Avenue, number 1392, that's a Nichols Hills package ship, okay? We have Advance Oklahoma PAC, Build and Protect PAC, Gabe Renfro for Oklahoma, Logan Phillips for State House, John George for Oklahoma, and from 2020 elect Mike Masters. Interestingly, they're all camp clients or South Creek Group. They all kind of seem to work together. South Creek Group, Amber Integrated. They all have the compliance officer that's Dustin McIntyre. Okay? Now, at the federal level, we kind of have the same thing, and here we have 1520 Bellevue Boulevard, number 3438 Alexandria, Virginia, which is a parcel plus in the Bellevue Shopping Mall. And yet this is Oklahomans for Law and Order, a Fund for a Working Congress, Protect Our Freedoms, Conference PAC, and Advance Oklahoma PAC. This was a direct vendor. This one was the only Oklahoma expenditure was Omni Consulting, which is Stephanie Alexander, who worked for President Trump's campaign here on the ground, and Camp, and the others. And these were all Dustin McIntyre. So, next. Next.
Oh, I thought it went, didn't
No,
it?
it's not.
Oh, it did.
They all
Sorry.
look alike.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Okay, and so I was looking up more PACs, and we had the same thing, PO boxes. One of them, Job Creators Action Fund, goes back to the state chamber. UPS Staples, UPS Staples, UPS Staples. Nobody seems to have an actual address in the world. Can't figure this out. Next. Okay, let's talk about another 501c4 called Prosperity Alliance. It was incorporated in 2017. The only street address provided on their 990s is for a tax preparer in Ohio. There was no treasurer named. There was a director, Tyler Connor, and the PO box matches a large corporation registry in Delaware. Just to insert, you'll see Delaware a lot, because what happens with some people who want to go to Delaware, I see some guy going,
If you go to incorporate, you go to Delaware, so
Why?
hide money.
Why?
If you wanna hide money.
What? I went to, I will say this, and it's aggravating, in terms of transparency, and you'll see me get aggravated during this a couple of different times. I'm aggravated right now. So, if you go to a Secretary of State website, and usually, I mean, the states have them, right? Secretary of State, because that's where they keep all the business registries. Our Oklahoma Secretary of State, I had to pay a minimum of $20 to get anything decent in terms of registration papers. Even for nonprofits, guys, even for nonprofits, and sometimes $40 to get to actual paperwork that was gonna tell me who was involved in something. I don't think that's right. I think I pay a lot of taxes. I don't think you need my extra $40 so that I can find something out about who's spending money in political races. I'm a little irritated about that. But then it's even worse. If you go to the SOS in Delaware, I would pay a minimum of $20, and guess what I would get? Literally buckets. It's exactly correct. All right. That PO box, however, was used for another pack, called the Palmetto Pack, which was active in 2017, 2018. And I will tell you this, there is a pattern. They set these packs up, they use them for a cycle, then they let them go for several cycles, then they bring them back and use them again. I mean, it's a thing. All right, this pack was active in Oklahoma, or this, I'm sorry, 501c4 was active in Oklahoma in 2018, but there were no 990 tax forms beyond 2018. So that wasn't even COVID, guys, okay? Nothing past 2018. It gave $300,000 to Oklahomans for Law and Order in 2022, and again, that donation was just because I went, oh, Oklahomans for Law and Order, what's this? Oh, next. Okay, so let's talk about Oklahomans for Law and Order. It's an FEC registered PAC, got $300,000 from Prosperity Alliance. Dustin McIntyre is the treasurer. The address is in Alexandria, Virginia, Parcel Plus. It spent $275,000 on television advertising, but there aren't any records for why. It just says, here's the vendor, that's it. And that's all it says, just that one record on FEC. So I went to the state. Yes, they did file an independent expenditure, but they weren't registered in the state. All right, the PAC wasn't registered in the state. Dustin McIntyre was its compliance officer. The address was in Nichols Hills Pack and Ship. $300,000 were not recorded in the state filings. So you could see what was spent, but you couldn't see the donation. So if I wanted to go, who gave to that Oklahomans for Law and Order PAC? I couldn't go to the state website, ethics website, and look it up. I'd have to go all the way out to the FEC and look it up. So I was going between websites constantly. They reported, the Oklahoma Independent Expenditure reported $275,000 TV expenditure to oppose John O'Connor as Attorney General. Next. So let's ask some questions. Why are there two addresses for the PAC? A P.O. box in the Bellevue Shopping Mall in Virginia and a P.O. box in the Nichols Hills Package Ship, shared by numerous other PACs and candidates? Seriously. Does that make any sense to anybody? Okay. Why does neither address correspond to a street address? And I will say that in the Oklahoma ethics rules, it says you must have a street address.
Every one of them have a PO box. I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Stairs,
Yes, sir.
your opinion of this?
Oh,
No,
she's
you
right.
wanna represent us, I wanna know your opinion
Oh,
of this
yeah,
right here.
I mean, she's right on. This, the camp group that she's talking about was Gabe Renfro's
I've got that information right here.
consultant.
Okay,
And, I have been to the Pack and Ship there in Nichols Hills, and, yeah, I mean, this is jacked up. I mean, this is not right.
It's
so
racketeering.
what do you, as our representative, what are you
Well,
prepared
let's,
to do?
hold on, let's get to the,
I'm just curious.
we got, I know. All right, so, but here's something I need you to know, because I kept asking, why do you have an FEC PAC and then you're not registered with the state? Because again, if you're not running for federal office, there's no requirement for that. So, it's a skirt around the rules. If you file it says, if you file with the FEC, you don't have to file with the state. People in this state could probably go, oh, I'll go to the Oklahoma Election Commission. They're not thinking I'm gonna go to the FEC in a state race, right?
If they're even thinking.
If they're either, well, and that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge
All right,
right
next.
there that people would even.
Kathy?
Kathy's asleep.
All right, now, here's something that you also need to know. Okay, there are other problems with this particular 501c4. It has 2 complaints against it with the FEC lodged by a group called Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, called CREW. And these complaints stem from both their 2017 and 2018 IRS 990 file. Crew alleges numerous violations of federal tax code, claiming in part that Prosperity Alliance exceeded the permitted expense related to political activity for its tax status, that it failed to report $1 million in spending, and that in-kind donations to another PAC, Conservative Alliance PAC, were not properly documented. Formal complaints were made by Crew to the IRS September 11, 2019, and again February 4th, 2021. To date, the IRS has addressed neither claim, and the Prosperity Alliance has continued its political activity right now in Oklahoma. Tell me that's not jacked up. Here's the problem.
I didn't do anything. Believe my name.
Is your name Jack? Stop jacking things up, Jack. Gosh. Here's the problem. So the IRS well, they did get 89,000 new agents, 87, I'm sorry, 87, whatever, something. But they are not checking these things. And this group, which is a pretty decent group, has filed twice, and the IRS is just flat ignoring this. It's upsetting. Next. All right, Sooner State Leadership Fund. This is the last 501c4. Don't applaud or anything, or I know. This is the last 501c4 we're going to talk about. It was incorporated in 2022 in Wilmington, Delaware, by the Corporation Trust Company, which is the largest registered service agent in the entire world. No director was listed on the paperwork, but a website. Now, no director was listed on the paperwork to the IRS, but a website for this fund lists Trevor Worthen as treasurer and chairman. Trevor Worthen was a partner with Fount Holland in AH Strategies before it became CAMP. So that's who Trevor Worthen is. No IRS 990 since, there was no IRS 990 on this one since their C4 is using funds prior to the filing date. So they opened a 501c4, you'll see a bunch of money into it, but then you don't even file, right? I mean, the filing isn't even until next year for this year, right? So I can't even go, all I could find when I went to the IRS was the incorporation letter. That was all I could find, all right? The FEC filing lists a Fund for a Working Congress, which shows a $1 million donation from Sooner State Leadership Fund. Brand new 501c4, no 990, got a $1 million donation. Next, let's see where it went. Fund for a Working Congress. This is an FEC PAC. It got $1 million from Sooner State Leadership Fund, which is the 501c4. Its treasurer is, come on, let's play along, come on, the treasurer is, okay, the address is okay, and this one's in Alexandria, Virginia. The Fund for a Working Congress reported over $2 million in donations, $300,000 from Prosperity Alliance. So Prosperity Alliance even added on to the $1 million from the fund, the other one, Sooner State Leadership Fund. So this was $1.4 million to spend to oppose Josh McKean for Congress. There were lesser amounts spent out of this PAC, Fund for a Working Congress, to oppose John Bennett and Scott Pruitt, and then $70,000 were spent to support Avery Fricks. There was only one disbursement from Oklahoma to Omni Consulting Group, which is the Stephanie Alexander, who was the agent, for $30,000. So let me just remind people, in 2016, when Joy Hoffmeister was running against Janet Barisi for our state superintendent, there was do you remember a guy named Chad Alexander? Does anybody remember this story? A guy named Chad Alexander was a lobbyist in the Capitol, and he kind of had a little breakdown and ended up leaving a laptop, and the laptop, it was kind of the Hunter Biden story, except this was very Oklahoma. And when the OSBI got it, they found that Chad Alexander had been working with Fount Holland, and Stephanie, who was not Alexander then, and Joy Hoffmeister, and they had all been working together on this PAC for her to be elected as state superintendent. Now, what ended up happening was it went to Oklahoma County DA, who was David Prater, and the case was lost. So there were never, Mount Holland, Stephanie Alexander, Mount Holland, and I don't remember, the guy with COSA, they were all arrested for this, but they were never brought to trial, and then that's the end of that, and that was over. But this
Now,
was,
Joy for governor.
these were,
Now they went to the Cayman Islands.
okay, so next slide. All right, so let's ask some questions about this one. Should a federal PAC influencing Oklahoma elections have a PAC and ship address? If individual disbursements are not provided by the PAC, how does the public know who's responsible for the Josh Burkeen opposition ads? Because there were no independent expenditures listed on there, just one $30,000 payment. That was it, okay? How do voters verify the veracity of claims made via an out-of-state PO box? So if I wanna go find out, if I wanna say, I don't think Clay Stairs is a liar, I wanna go find out who said that about him. Can I go to a PO box? Well, I can go there. Clay went to the one, but you're gonna stand there like an idiot because there's nobody to see
You
you.
can knock on that door all you want.
Hello? Okay? The other problem that I had was there's supposed to be phone numbers listed with these, and I called as many as I could. I kind of lost track, so I was just kind of randomly calling. You've reached so-and-so and so-and-so. There's nobody here to take your call. Please leave a message and we'll return your call. Okay, so now I didn't even get anybody on the phone. So tell me how that any of this is transparent. That's my question. Shouldn't Oklahoma voters be able to easily find out that a PAC running opposition ads against candidates is getting money from a 50C4 registered in Delaware? Should donations from inside the state fund in-state elections? Next. Okay, so let's talk about another one. Advance Oklahoma PAC. This is an FEC registered PAC in 2020. Its treasurer is? Its address is It received contributions from the American Exceptionalism Institute, which is 501c4 of $100,000, a Public Voice, which is the one that we talked about before, for $225,000, and Hometown Freedom Action Network for $10,000. There weren't any independent expenditures reported, but there were disbursements to Camp, Amber Integrated, South Creek Group, Red Maverick Media, LLC, and Wenzel Strategies. Next. So I went to the state because the FEC was pretty empty, right? So I went to the state. I found out that they did report independent expenditures. The compliance officer is? The address is okay, they're not registered with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission. No donations were recorded because if you don't register as a PAC, you don't have to list the donations. You just have to list the independent expenditures, all right? So the state independent expenditures don't match the FEC disbursements. The independent expenditures supported 5 camp clients: Gabe Renfro, Logan Phillips, Teresa Sterling, Jeff Sawatsky, and 1 South Creek Group client, Hunter Zierle, 1 Ascend Action client, Richard Miller. The IE's opposed candidates running against camp clients: Angelina Brindley against Randy Randleman, Chris Banning against Logan Phillips. Pretty much like the Build and Protect PAC. Remember
You
what
can
I
add
told you
me
about?
onto that too.
Right, say again?
You can add me onto that too.
You weren't listed.
No, opposed candidate.
Yeah, well, I have,
On this PAC, you weren't listed.
okay, we were looking at 2 different things. Cause I found with Advance Oklahoma that they did spend money opposing me.
Would you please snap the thing
Sure.
for me, because I love evidence.
Okay.
When did 501c4s come into existence?
It was kind of within the several year period after Citizens United, because they figured
And
that.
when was that? What
Don't
year?
make me, I did a lot of this, don't I get credit for that? wanna say it was 2012. Don't hold me to that, cause I really honestly can't remember, but it's been,
It's recent.
well, but you know, I mean, yeah.
10 years in
10
political
Google it.
is recent.
No, now that I agree with, yes, sir.
Have you found any record of Drew McIntyre getting paid any salary?
Not so far.
Of Reba?
Dustin, Dustin.
Dustin.
Okay, so okay, next, sorry, I got ahead. Okay, so this is, I made a table up of all of the candidates, and I want you to kind of look at, cause you're smart, you can figure this out for yourself, so look at that, just a second. So how odd is it that the campaign consultant, right here, here's the campaign consultant. So the PAC is paying this campaign consultant, okay? Or this is the campaign consultant, they're paying these groups, right? Okay? So then it comes down here, when these are not, or other than camp clients, then camp is the person paid. Okay?
Can I get a picture of that?
I'll send it to you, don't worry. Yeah, cause that's terrible. I'll send it to you. Next. Alright, now here's another interesting thing. So I went out to the camp website, it's a public website, they have all kinds of things on it. So I went, they literally had a title here that said Advance Oklahoma PAC. So I'm assuming that whatever this mailer was done out of Advance Oklahoma PAC, and they've actually listed it on their website. Next. Should Advance Oklahoma named political entities be paid out of the same PAC where IEs were made for their own clients? Are you getting the idea that I'm asking a lot of the same questions over and over again? Should Advance Oklahoma PAC have the same addresses found on the websites for Gabe Renfro and Logan Phillips, both camp clients? Should the FEC disbursements match the state IE reports? Why are disbursements reported to an FEC registered PAC when no candidate is running a federal race? Why is the PAC not registered with the Oklahoma Ethics Commission? Should the PAC have a treasurer compliance officer who lives in Oklahoma with an Oklahoma street address? Next. Alright, now, I'm gonna start winding it up here, because otherwise I could keep you literally overnight. We'd all get like bed rolls and just keep going, keeping at it, with you guys screaming, Dustin McIntyre, back in shit.
You need to bring Dustin McIntyre to Osage County.
Okay, now here's an interesting one. So, when the original reason I started all this nightmare in the first place was because, did anybody know around here Jake Merrick? He was a state senator, okay, from Edmond, really super nice guy, just love Jake. Well, they spent, and I say they, I mean all of this kind of group of people, spent about $350,000 in the race to get rid of him. And that's exactly what they did. Jake raised about $60,000, I think, and they just kept pouring money into PACs. And it's kind of the school choice lobby, and they just wanted to get rid of him because he voted no on one bill. So that was what they wanted to do. Well, when I was researching, that's why I started researching all of this, because I'm like, wait a minute, that was a good guy. This other girl came from nowhere, and she's suddenly running, and now everybody loves her. I'm like, this is nuts. You know, he did a good job. So I started looking, and a girl who runs an organization called the Lion's Den in Edmond, she worked really hard for Jake's campaign. And she texted me one day with a picture, and she said, who is Oklahoma Conservative, Oklahomans for Conservative Values? I'm sorry, all these PACs run together, and that's the other problem with them. They all sound alike. And I said, I have no idea, let me go look it up. There was nothing on the FEC website, there was nothing on the State Ethics Commission website. I'm like, I Googled it. There was a web page, but it had been completely erased. You didn't even have a way back machine for it. And I'm like, okay, now you're making me mad. So I started looking it up, and here's what I found. Oklahomans for Conservative Values. Does anybody know that you can actually go into Facebook? And this is kind of helpful, I will have to say, I'm not a big Facebook fan, but it is helpful. You can go into their ads. I can't remember what the name of the tab is, but you can actually go into the ads and find out who ran the ads that you're seeing on Facebook. And it's just a transparency thing, and it worked really well. So what I did was, I went out to Facebook, and because they ran digital video ads that said State Senator Jake Merrick loosened restrictions on sex offenders and put our community in danger. Okay, so I'm like, all right. They also went door to door distributing flyers with a QR code with the text "Oklahomans deserve better." Well, my friend Rhonda opened the door when the guy was coming around, and so she asked him some questions. It was clear he was paid for it. He had no idea what he was doing. He didn't know anything about Jake Merrick or anything else, so they were actually paying door knockers, all right? Information collected from Facebook's database shows that there was an address associated with that particular ad account of 1000 Broadway Suite, 1500 Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73102. So I went out and I looked and I got a match, and it was a place called DeVee Gilchrist, which is a professional corporation that incorporates many Oklahoma companies. So it's another incorporator. They're also an attorney's office, so they do other things, but they are an incorporator of companies. And I knew I'd heard this before, this someplace. So Facebook reports that OCV spent $13,600 on ads from May 7th, 2018 to September 3rd, 2022, and that they spent $3,000 and $3,500 in 2022 and generated between 60 and 70,000 impressions. So I want you to think about that. An impression according to Facebook is, oh, I saw that, okay? Now, I already know Clay Stairs is a liar, so I'm not having anything to do with him, right? And now here's Jake Merrick, who lets sex offenders go. I'm not voting for that guy, right? If you spend over, I think it's $3,200, you have to register with the State Ethics Commission and record your independent expenditures, okay? Clearly, this group did not do that. There was no FEC filing, no OKC filing. And I went all the way back to 2018 too, because you can go through the Oklahoma State Ethics Commission and check dates and go back through, and I couldn't find anything from 2018. The website's been scrubbed, the Facebook posts are scrubbed. Next. So these were the things that came out. Support a real conservative, they deserve better, blah, blah, blah. Okay, next. Now here's something that kind of hit me, because I've also been studying lots of different PACs. When I studied Jake Merrick's race, I found that OCPA had been heavily involved in Jake Merrick's race. And I remembered that I had seen the DeVee Clark on some of the ones that were associated with OCPA. Now, I will tell you this, I am not saying OCPA ran those ads. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that DeVee Gilchrist is the incorporator of some of OCPA's organizations. That's all I'm saying. Next. Okay, so let's recap. Out-of-state 501c4 donations are influencing Oklahoma elections. The 501c4 donors don't have to be identified, and 501c ownership is often obscured via Delaware incorporation. In-state and out-of-state PAC money influenced Oklahoma elections in 2022. Donations are made from one PAC to another across the state and federal levels. We've already seen that like a watching machine. Questions surround many of the PACs that have used funds to directly influence Oklahoma elections, all of which directly speak to the level of transparency available to Oklahoma voters across a broad range of political campaigns. At least one 501c4 in this presentation, which has donated Oklahoma PACs in the 2022 election cycle, has active IRS investigation requests from 2017 to 2018, yet spending money in Oklahoma in 2022. At least one electional influencer in this particular presentation didn't even have any filings at all. So you are being influenced by somebody who played by zero rules, okay? At least these other people are, never mind. Next. All right, in closing, Oklahoma elections are becoming more and more expensive, and candidates mounting conventional campaigns are finding it more and more difficult to overcome the influence of dark money. As dark money grows, voter transparency declines. PAC money is now being used to influence municipal elections, like the Muskogee mayoral race through the Muskogee Diversity Coalition PAC, and the Cleveland County Commissioners race, which was done by Advance Oklahoma PAC. These impede election funding transparency even more because voters have to go to the county courthouse of those particular races to get the information. You can't just go get them online because, trust me, my sciatica will tell you I was seated in front of the computer for 90% of this. In some cases, money is being spent to influence local elections outside of Oklahoma Ethics Commission rules and regulations. Next. So here's what I have for proposed action, okay? Because I've been thinking about this a lot in the month that it's taken me to kind of put all of this together. So you really need to go on. Last Wednesday, I was invited to present to the, we have an Oklahoma Ethics Committee, okay? So just like we have a tourism committee, we have a, whatever, rules committee, right, that the legislature has. We also have one for ethics. So I was asked to present my information to the ethics committee, okay? And the ethics commission was also asked to present at that particular committee. The director of the ethics commission went before me and gave her presentation, and then we had a break, and then she left.
Now, how do you work?
So, I have to say, I was really disappointed because I've talked to her numerous times, but and I'm just saying this is how I felt about it. I felt like she left so she didn't have to hear any of the questions that I was asking because, oh my gosh, she might have to answer them.
What's her name?
Do what?
What's her name?
Ashley Kemp is the director of the Oklahoma Ethics Commission. So I want you to go find, it'll be up on our website. It's easy to find. It's just road2.org. I mean, it's super easy, and we have all of our social media links just right there in the gutter, so you can just go to them and find them. It's pretty easy. We have a Rumble channel and a YouTube channel. I've downloaded that ethics committee interim study, and I'm gonna load it up onto our website so you can just go there and find it. But you really need to hear what Ashley Kemp has to say about the ethics commission. She's going to tell you that there's not enough money to run the commission. They don't have enough money and they have a very tiny budget. I mean, it's true, but I personally believe that part of the problem is that the ethics commission is so interested in making sure that candidates turn in their filing on time. Or we're gonna file you $1,000, or I'm sorry, Clay, I don't like this particular receipt. I need to have this receipt. You're gonna have to give me access to your bank account so I can see your receipt. They're very interested in candidates, but I don't feel like they even pay any attention to the 35,000 foot view, which is what's killing us. It's not that Clay, oh shoot, I forgot to turn in that ethics report. That's not killing us. This is killing us. Contact the chair. The chair of the Oklahoma Ethics Committee is Jim Olson, and the vice chair is Max Wolfley. And just say, hey, I saw Jenny came and did her presentation for us out here in Osage County, and I just want you to know that based on what I saw of her presentation, I'm very concerned about what's going on. There were 8 people that showed up for that interim study. I'm telling you, 2 things are happening here. Nobody's going down for any of this, so it just emboldens people to do more of the same thing that they're doing. And then nobody knows what to do about it, so they just let it go. Okay? So if we're not gonna be the watchmen and watchwomen on the wall, I promise you, this isn't gonna get any better. And you think $350,000 for a state senate seat is expensive? just watch. I won my mayoral race on a $150 postcard. Do you know what it cost the Muskogee mayor? I think they ended up putting in something like $6,000 or something in a race for Muskogee mayor. It was like $15,000 for corporation commission in Cleveland County. Guys, I didn't know the founders. I mean, I know I'm getting up there in age, but I didn't really know them. But here's the thing, they never had back then, they didn't have the level of education that we had in terms of just broad education. And so what ended up happening is the people that, you know, had property or that kind of thing ended up going, you know, to the legislature. Well, over the years, that was not the way they wanted it, which is why they wanted to just serve and go home, because they wanted other people to come in and serve and do the job. They didn't anticipate these James Langford types that were gonna stay there for 87.5 years. They didn't anticipate these people who were gonna spend $350,000 on a state senate race, when basically you shouldn't have to spend that kind of money. You're asking, ideally, you're asking for your communities to support you.
Right.
You're not asking for some wild and crazy guy from Ohio via Delaware to give you $1 million to run your race. He doesn't care about what happens when you win and your policies. Who cares about the people who win are the people in the community affected by the policies. This is crap, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm in a jerk, but this is really bad news. And it's gonna get even worse if we don't put a stop to it. It's not gonna get better, it's just gonna keep getting more expensive, and people like Clay and me and you are not gonna be able to afford to run for any kind of a seat because we don't have the big donor class behind us to support us. That's not America.
Can I put a pack together and support you? I think we could do that.
Well, and you know, here's the thing, and this is a really interesting thing, and I'm glad you said that, because my poor husband, can you imagine being my poor husband? He can't imagine it sometimes either, trust me. But anyway, I usually tell him about all of this stuff, and I usually end up ranting, right? I'm like, David, isn't it terrible, blah, 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 you know? So I was ranting to him the other day, and I said, we just have to stop this. We just have to stop PACs. And he goes, no. And my husband is the opposite of me. He's very quiet. He hardly says anything. And he said, nope. And I was like, wait just a dang minute. I think that's divorce on the horizon. What did you just say? And he made a really super good point. He said, well, honey, what if I wanted to start a PAC and raise it for somebody? What if we wanted to do that?
Use
to
your
do
own
that?
rules against them.
That's right.
That's right.
So that's not an option. It's not gonna be an option. Well, give me 1 second, will you, and I'll come right back to you. So contact them, start going to Oklahoma Ethics Commission meetings. Just come down to the Capitol, it's not that far, I drove up here, it's an hour and a half, you can do it. Go for 1 day to go to the Ethics Commission meetings, because I'm gonna start doing that and just sitting there so that they know somebody's watching them every day, because I hate to tell you this, but I think everybody knows it's true. You're a lot more willing to do something when nobody's watching, right? Pay close attention to political ads. That's like I said, Clay, if you have that, I didn't see your name on, so please send that to me.
Sure.
Find out what campaign advisor your elected officials use. And I'm gonna say that if you're using any of them in this particular presentation, you probably need to go to them and say, look, I'm not super comfortable with this particular situation, and maybe you need to get it, you know, let's find you somebody else, or, you know, you need to have conversations with your elected officials about this, because they're just trying to get elected, right? So let's let them know how we feel about
And
that.
what strings are attached to this support?
Absolutely.
And,
That's the thing.
you know, here's the thing. So I had lunch with a couple of legislators, breakfast with legislators, to show them what was going on. And here's what they said. Well, these are all independent expenditures. I never saw anything about it, so how am I gonna be influenced with it? And I'm like, you're missing the whole point. It's somebody who's not even attached with anything is going to come in and say, well, I really need you to do this, and you're not gonna know that they were with that PAC or not, but the reason you're in there is because they're pretty sure you're gonna listen to what they have to say. So it's not like they're gonna come up and go, okay, well, I'm gonna get you in there for $75,000, but you're gonna do everything I say. Okay, it's not that overt. I mean, don't make me look like an idiot. It's not like that. They go out and they seek these candidates who are people that they know don't have the moxie to go, well, I don't know, you're coming in here and asking me this, and I'm not sure about that, right?
Right.
That's what
They
they
don't have the
do.
backbone to stand up and say no.
So it's not like, when he said that, I just thought, no, we're not going down that road, because that's not the issue here. The issue is you're not gonna even know the people who are coming in there, but they wanted you in there because they were pretty sure you were gonna do what they wanted you to do.
They might not want you. They don't care
Oh,
what you
trust
do.
me,
They
I will
darn
never
sure
be
don't-
able to run for a public, I won't be able to run for dog catcher after.
They don't want your opponent to win.
Yeah.
There's also a candidate, not a candidate, there is also a person in the legislature where a lot of this money is funneled through.
Yeah.
He is influential on, he kind of hand chooses these individuals that this money goes to.
And that is.
And that's where the influence could actually, the conflict could occur.
So what we've gotta do is we've gotta tell voters, tell everybody what's going on, and I'm sorry I made you wait, go ahead, please.
Who appoints the chair and the vice chair, and how long do they hold those positions?
That's a really good question. So there are 5 ethics commissioners, okay? One, and I always forget this, so bear with me. One of them is appointed by the governor, one of them is appointed by the AG, one of them is appointed by the Speaker of the House, one of them's appointed by the pro tem, and one of them's, I don't remember what the last one is for. But then, the commission, they vote they vote for the chairman of the commission. The director, who is Ashley Kemp, is the one who directs the overall everyday workings of the organization. The commission is the one that votes to decide whether or not they're going to bring charges against somebody, or they're going to file something, against a candidate or a PAC or something like that. So that's what the commission does. She is. There's no way of getting around that. She likes to say that it's a very independent agency, but I don't know how it can be independent of the government if you have government and elected officials appointing them.
This actually can.
I haven't been able to figure that out because I haven't asked the right question to the right person. I'm not sure, and I didn't ask her directly how, but I believe she was appointed, but I'm not sure how. I'm trying to find the answer to that question.
So for how long are they in those positions?
Well, Ashley Kemp has been the director for quite some time. I wanna say minimum of 8 years. Again, I can't remember, my brain, the hard drive is so full, I'd like to just drag an external hard drive with me, because I can't remember half of these things. I mean, it's like, I can't keep them all on there. But she's been there for quite some time, numerous years. And the commissioners are all, I believe they're 4-year terms. So they go off.
If she's appointed, she can be impeached.
If she is appointed, she could be impeached, that is correct, or she could be removed, yes, beyond impeached, just
Right,
say,
just removed. The governor can
you
remove
served
her.
at somebody's pleasure and now you are not.
Correct.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, next and last slide. Okay, this is, this is the last slide. Okay, so I have an entire series which I've called the corruption belt. We like to think of ourselves as a Bible belt, but I want you to know we're not so much anymore. And it's a sad thing, but what's happened over the years is that we've gone from believing that we still believe that we're a red state. We're not a red state. I mean, and I can tell you Oklahoma County alone is not a red county. It's just simply not. Part of the reason that this particular situation with the PACs is bad is because they find people to run who are either Democrats that they asked to change to Republicans, or are very moderate Republicans. And so what happens is when they spend all of this money to get these people elected, then all of a sudden we become a lot less conservative. So this is what's been going on for years and years and years and years, and we know that for a fact because we know in 2016 they were all caught at it. Okay? What we have to do is we have to make up our mind and say, because people have asked me, well, none of this has to do with education. What are you doing? Because ROPE stands for Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment. We used to be about education. We still are. It's just that the problem with this is what's going on in education doesn't matter if we can't get good people in there to make good education law. We need to stop making laws. We need to start repealing laws is what we need to do. But we can't get people in there who understand that we have to repeal laws unless they're conservative people. And we can't get conservative people in when they're going around behind our backs and creating these, Manchurian candidates, if you will, and then running them with so much money that we can't compete. So I'm asking you tonight, I'm seriously asking you tonight, please really consider diving in on this with me and helping me out. I'm seriously even considering creating an organization, not a 501c4.
You don't.
I know a good treasurer.
I'm calling that Hey Dustin, you wanna run my
Nice one,
501c4? But I feel like, other states have independent watchdogs and independent ethics watchdogs, and I think our Oklahoma Ethics Commission is not doing the job that they need to be doing, and my thought is maybe we need to get a group of citizenry who's just gonna be an independent ethics watchdog, because I'm just sick of this, and I swear, I got so mad doing this, you guys just don't even know. I would be sitting up there just like, dang it, because it's so irritating, So, anyway, thank you for having me, and thank you for staying awake, because I know it's like super boring. Yes, sir, and then yes, ma'am.
If you can find all of this in your budget, yes, we're making it lazy.
Well,
And they can't use that for any excuse if they've got a little money to use it.
I will say I did it on my own dime, and I did it all with public, so I don't know.
What is your website?
My website is ROPE, R-O-P-E, 2.org. And you can find all of these correction bells articles right there, and you can read about specific ones that I'm still digging in. My PowerPoint is actually going up on the website, up on our Rumble site or our YouTube site, hopefully tomorrow. And it'll be up this week.
It's Rope 2 on Rumble.
Road 2 is not on Rumble, it's Reclaim Oklahoma Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment on Rumble and on YouTube.
I beat him in
Yes,
the
sir.
run.
Text Rope
He
2,
was the one that
2282.
felt so good
Do that again, wait, stop, everybody, listen, stop, listen. Okay, say it one more time.
Text the word rope and the numeral 2 to the number 22828.
That signs you up for our newsletter.